Welcome back, everybody. David Griscom here, your host for Left Reckoning. And I'm really honored to be joined by our two guests today, Sam Kirsch and Seneca Savoie. And we're going to be talking about something a little bit close to home, something that's happening here in Austin, but really highlights a lot of the struggles that we face when it comes to dealing with police departments. And I know I don't need to explain this to the listeners, but on top of like the brutality of what the police do to people in the street and in public, there's also just this fundamental question of democracy. Who should the police be serving? Who should they be accountable to? And what's been happening here in Austin, Texas, has some really, really frightening lessons for how we deal with police brutality in the U.S. But before we jump into it, thank you so much, Sam and Seneca, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
So, I mean, this story has just been developing pretty rapidly, and I want to catch everybody up, but just really quick so people don't miss it if they jump out of the video later. There's an important action this Wednesday that people in the Austin area should certainly be marking their calendars and showing up for, right?
Yes. So this Wednesday, and we'll go into why this is happening later, there will be a vote that contains exactly two items, both of which are crucial. One will be a vote for a resolution on a short-term contract. That will allow the stuff we're talking about later to matter by basically pushing back police contract negotiations until after the vote. The second, and this is the bad one, will be for a 4-year police contract. If that passes, none of the other stuff we're talking about matters. So we do or die, we need bodies in the room. You can sign up on Tuesday with the link that we'll go ahead and send to David after the fact once we have it. And you can sign up Wednesday morning before 9:15 by physically going. Even if you can't testify, we need bodies in the room to hold signs and make us look like the big unruly mob that we are. So show up to City Hall along Cesar Chavez. And look for the people in red shirts. Hopefully we'll have pizza. That would be great. That would mean we're organized. And join and amplify the level of ruckus.
So yeah, and again, there'll be links below in the show notes for people to check out how to get involved, because this is a really important story. And I mean, like, where to begin? I mean, I think that like the recent developments might actually sort of prevent us from being able to do a full overlook of the past few years here in Austin and what people have been doing in relationship to the police department. But just like nuts and bolts kind of thing for folks, Austin, just like a lot of cities in this country, has seen a pretty tremendous organizing effort by people who want to see significant changes to policing. And that has been met with fierce resistance from the police department. And let's start with this first news bit here, y'all, because this just shows like the kind of the lack of like care and respect that the local police department in Austin has for democracy here. And that's about this petition effort. So there were petitions going around town, basically telling people, hey, do you want to reform the police? Do you want to see changes in policing? And people at HEB or whatever are thinking, okay, yeah, I do, and I signed this thing. But these efforts were actually funded by the local police department, correct?
That's right. We knew from the jump that they were involved, and then we got, I think, frankly surprised just by the level of it. So initially, right, this was a copycat of a petition that we had done earlier in the year, which would limit what kinds of contracts city council would be allowed to pass with regards to police, mandating certain baseline levels of transparency, oversight, getting rid of things like the D file that locks away misconduct information about officers, making it so that the police oversight office can do independent investigations, etc. So we fast forward to about November, and this starts circulating, and we're a little bit confused because we already got our signatures. And so the thing that's actually being circulated has the same name as our petition, and on first glance would appear to be the same thing. But when you look through it, it's basically the Austin Police Association's negotiating position in the contract negotiations that are happening right then and just finished today, about an hour ago. So we, right away, we're like, well, this looks a little suspicious, but we can't even get any of the canvassers to tell us who they actually work for at first. That takes a lot of work. And then all we find out is which subcontractor, still not who's paying for it. And it's not until weeks later that we find out that there's a group called VOPA, Voters for Oversight and Police Accountability, that has a website that no one's ever seen before. But when you look at the privacy disclosure, says that it's hosted by the Austin Police Association PAC, which they then change as soon as we let local reporters know. So we know that they're involved somehow, right? Our theory is they must have tricked some stupid billionaire into funding this effort. Fast forward to about January 15th, and we find out, no. Of the $288,000 that VOPA spent on fooling Austinites, 287 came from the Austin Police Association. Then there's a small contribution from the Corpus Christi Police Association,
Nice.
and then and $125 from two random schmucks who donated on the website.
And I mean, the funding is one thing, but the representation on the street is a whole other, right?
Yeah, and so as Seneca mentioned, they were, telling people to, hey, are you a registered voter in Austin? Do you want to sign this petition for police reform? And of course, people were just saying yes. They didn't really think too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
They also had heard because, in the summer of 2022, us with, in Austin DSA, we gathered, over 6,000 signatures for the, equity action, the Real Police Oversight Act. And so people, had this on their minds and they just signed. And so, that's when we knew we had to start calling them out on their lies. And so we launched basically a counter canvassing campaign. We started organizing DSA members and DSA adjacent members. We set up a network and we were, figuring out where they were. We had people who were acting sort of as spotters. We had people who were more actively, confronting canvassers, which is something that, I decided to do. And, that's when we started to hear that they were claiming that they were with Equity Action. And so we knew that we needed to, record them and call them out on their lies. So that's what we did.
Yeah, and we actually have a little bit of these recordings here. I'll just play a couple seconds of it for folks.
Who do you work with?
We work with Equity Actions. We're just collecting signatures to get on the ballot. We're with Equity Action. It's a nonprofit organization.
Is I'm trying to remember the name.
Oh, like Equity Matters or something like that?
Yeah. Same group, or is this another?
They are sponsoring us, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and look into Equity Action. We're the one doing the petition, Austin Police Oversight, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you, miss.
So Sam, for people who might not be familiar, I mean, what's going on in those clips right there?
Yeah, so actually one of those was Seneca, and we had a couple of other comrades who got recordings of that. So that was basically, just going up to where these canvassers were and just, kind of playing a little ignorant, letting them, do the approach that they would do to anybody else. And so, we knew that we couldn't just let that slide, and we had to get it on record because we knew that they obviously were not with Equity Action because we know who Equity Action is. And so that was just clearly, undermining trust, funded by the police. And, it is concerning about the future as to what people are going to trust when, somebody says, hey, do you want to sign this petition? And it's going to be a challenge even for us in some ways moving forward with our campaign.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of the legality of this, I mean, it certainly morally and ethically crosses the line. Is there a lot of hope that this might be something that could, invalidate some of the canvassing that they were doing?
So the rules for that are relatively squishy, unfortunately. So there is a way to rescind, but you have to do it before the signatures are validated, which makes it relatively difficult to remedy. So one of the things they did was to turn in their signatures early once they found out that there was this counter canvassing effort. So we, with very little effort, right? We didn't do any paid ads. We'd only had this effort up for about a week and a half to get people to tell us if they wanted to have their signature removed. And like I said, did basically no outreach on this, and got 1,500 people who wanted their signature removed, right? Now, if that had gone on another week, it's very likely that we would have gotten major political institutions to text their membership, Travis County Democratic Party, Central Labor Council, things like this. And given the hit rate that we had, I think we could have very easily gotten 5,000 to 6,000 people to remove their signatures. But only the people who got their stuff in were able to achieve the remedy, right? So even though more people asked to have their signatures removed from this than any petition in Austin history, they still were able to get on the ballot because of just the sheer volume of how many that they gathered. They turned in about 34,000 raw signatures, which is a testament to the terrible working conditions that the signature gatherers had, right? That almost certainly wage theft going on as well.
Yeah, and actually, if I could just jump in on that, real quick, that was like one of the reasons why we were able to get so many people to try to get their signatures rescinded was because of the counter canvassing that we were doing, constantly calling them out on their lies. And as Seneca mentioned, there was wage theft. We actually were even able to get one of them hired by a local union co-op that runs campaigns that DSA has some crossover with. But we had heard that some of them didn't even sign 1099s. We heard that some of them were getting told that they were going to be getting paid $5 or $6 per signature. They obviously had a lot of money, but we don't know, if they were actually, if people were actually getting paid. And actually, a lot of their canvassers were sort of, traveling around the country. Nobody on their side was from Austin. And, at one point, so, at first they said they were with Equity Action. We called them out on that. They stopped saying that they were with Equity Action, and they started telling people that they were with Voters for Oversight and Police Accountability. And then by the end of it, when we were claiming that, rightly so, that they were funded by the Austin Police Association, they had to actually just accept that and try to run with it and, say, yes, we are, but actually that's a good thing, which is obviously just absurd if you are, trying to have police oversight. You can't if you are the police. And they, I want to just, wrap up on that note with that, they were acting with, without any thought of consequence. Even when, I was on the ground counter canvassing, some of them got extremely aggressive. One of them threatened to stab me. I believed that he might have if I didn't back off. And another one, threw some punches and kicks and spat in my face. It was in front of a store. People called the cops, but obviously the cops would, they're not going to come and do anything. So, it was just absolutely insane.